Books. Books. About 8,000 books.
Bringing books and people together.
Books.
My first question to you is this.
You can read for fun. And happy reading.
What's shaking, cocktail fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Bar Cart Podcast. I'm your host, Modern Bar Cart CEO Eric Kozlik. This time around, we got a little book review episode for you, and I decided to put this one together for a couple reasons. First, we've been throwing a lot of interview content your way recently, so I figured a change of pace is always good. And second, this is the time of year that I always kind of pop my head out of my little winter burrow and start searching around for inspiration to jolt me out of my routine. So I thought I'd give you, our listeners, the chance to do the same. The book we're featuring in this episode is pretty special, and I'm excited to share it with you. But before we get there, I do have a couple announcements for our DC area listeners. First off, I wanted to share a cool upcoming event we'll be hosting in collaboration with our friends over at 10th Ward Distilling in Frederick, Maryland. The event is called Taste Like a Pro, and this is a really rare opportunity to taste through a unique portfolio of spirits and learn how to articulate all those interesting flavor notes you experience. The event's going to take place in the brand new 10th Ward Barrel Room at 7 p.m. on Thursday, March 28th, and for just $35, listen to all this cool stuff you'll get. You'll receive a handcrafted welcome cocktail, a complimentary copy of the Essential Tasting Journal for spirits and cocktails, a Glencairn glass with an etched 10th Ward logo, and a curated tasting of 10th Ward's innovative spirits as I lead you on a journey through the biology, psychology, and poetry of flavor. Links to the Facebook event and the Eventbrite ticket page in the show notes. We actually piloted this event with the Bottle Club over at 10th Ward last month, and we got such great reviews, we decided to open it to the public. So if you're in the area, I highly recommend you try and attend. And if you're a distiller or a bar owner and you'd like to customize this kind of event for your establishment, all you got to do is holler at us via email or social media, and we'll help you put something together. Next up, I just got an email from our friend Dennis Sendros, who runs an event series called Cocktailological Evenings here in DC, and he wanted me to pass along a sweet discount code to all of our podcast listeners for 2 upcoming events in March and April. And basically what Cocktailological Evenings is a supper club for cocktails. Simple as that. You show up to a place called Exiles Bar, which is on U Street, and you have an intimate 3-course cocktail service for no more than 6 guests. Each evening is completely unique, and Dennis guides you through the flight, offering history, recipes, and personalized service. So if you think you might be interested in their upcoming gin or whiskey nights, head over to the show notes page and follow the link to the Eventbrite page where you can sign up. And here's the important part. At checkout, enter the coupon code MODERN and receive $10 off your ticket just for being a podcast listener. Not too shabby. Lots of events for you to check out over the course of the next month. And now that the announcements are done, let's get to the important stuff and give you the chance to make yourself a drink. This week's featured cocktail is a bitter one in homage to Sother Teague, who's the author of a great little book called I'm Just Here for the Drinks. Sother runs a really cool bar called Amor y Amargo in Manhattan, which literally translated means love and bitters. Accordingly, our featured cocktail is the Hanky-Panky, which is a drink referred to by Sother as, quote, essentially a sweet gin martini bolstered with a few dashes of bitter and herbal elixir Fernet Branca, end quote. To make it, you'll need 1.5 ounces of gin, 1.5 ounces of sweet vermouth, and about 1/4 ounce of Fernet Branca. Some recipes, including the one in Sother's book, give you that last measurement in dashes, but I figured most of us home bartenders haven't taken the trouble to transfer our Fernet into a dasher bottle, so I figured 1/4 ounce is a pretty decent approximation. Combine all your boozy and spirituous ingredients and stir them up in a mixing glass with ice for about 20 seconds until it's well chilled and diluted. Strain into a nice coupe glass or a Nick and Nora glass and then garnish with an expressed orange peel that you then discard. The Hanky-Panky was invented by Ada Coleman back in the early 1900s when she was the head bartender at the American Bar at the Savoy Hotel in London. This was a time when you didn't see many female bartenders at all, let alone female head bartenders. So I think it's safe to say that this is a special drink invented by a special lady who helped pave the way for all the amazing female mixologists who are doing great things behind the bar today. So, now that you've got yourself a cocktail, let's turn our attention to Sother Teague's awesome book, I'm Just Here for the Drinks. First off, let's learn about the author. Sother Teague is what I'd refer to as a polymath in the cocktail space. In his past lives, he's worked the night shift at a Waffle House. He's been the technical chef for Alton Brown's Good Eats. He's been an instructor at the New England Culinary Institute. And before he opened up his own bars, he was on the opening team for Dave Arnold's New York bar, Booker and Dax. And as if that's not enough, he runs 2 bars in addition to Amore Amargo, and he hosts The Speakeasy, which is a weekly spirits and bartending radio show, alongside fellow New York barman Damon Bolte. Oh yeah, and he was voted Mixologist of the Year in 2017 by Wine Enthusiast magazine. I feel like I'm almost out of breath just thinking about how much work this guy does every day, but somehow he has also managed to put out a book. And yes, you may have heard rumors about this. He wrote most of it on his phone. I'm Just Here for the Drinks came out in late 2018, and I got it as a little holiday gift for myself. And I gotta say, when we were on the road on the West Coast recently, I had a great time thumbing through the pages between interviews and bar visits. The first thing I noticed about this book is that the format is a little different than most cocktail books out there. Generally, and I say this knowing that you could list lots of exceptions, but bear with me, generally, cocktail books fall into one of a few categories. You've got your technique books like Dave Arnold's Liquid Intelligence, Jeffrey Morgenthaler's The Bar Book, and Peter Meehan's Bartender Manual. You've got your history-driven books like Imbibe and Punch by David Wondrich, and A Bottle of Rum by Wayne Curtis, and pretty much everything from Philip Green. You've got your encyclopedic reads like Amy Stewart's The Drunken Botanist. You've got your ingredient-focused books that zoom in on one spirit and really dive deep, like Brad Thomas Parsons' Amaro. And then you've got your recipe-focused books that offer drinks for a specific crowd, theme, or purpose, like Maggie Hoffman's One Bottle Cocktails or Shanna Farrell's Bay Area Cocktails. And I have the feeling that when Sother was trying to figure out where this book was going to fall in the pantheon of cocktail books, he probably got a little fed up and uttered the phrase, I'm just here for the drinks. What's cool about this book's setup is that it's ostensibly organized by spirit, with a bunch of recipes to go along with each base ingredient. He dispatches quickly with vodka, as many bartenders are wont to do, and then proceeds to cover gin, whiskey, brandy, tequila and mezcal, rum, Amaro, and various mixed libations. If you're looking at the table of contents, that's it. That's the book. But as you read through, there's a lot more good stuff waiting around every corner. One set of strategic elements that crop up at various intervals throughout the book are the technical passages about everything from ice to distillation to how to feel out a bar to how James Bond ruined the martini. These little sections give the reader a nice little break if they've just finished 15 or 20 pages on a spirit like whiskey or gin. They're almost like little interruptive palate cleansers between tastings. The other really standout aspects of this book are the beautiful photography on almost every recipe page and the cocktail submissions from guest bartenders like Gaz Regan and Washington, D.C.'s own Derek Brown. And the effect that this all has is almost like a cabinet of curiosities. Everywhere you turn, there's something interesting to look at. And even though it's highly curated, you don't get any stuffiness or rigidity that turns you off from the content. I've actually heard Sother talk about how he likes to design bars in this way, with lots of little knickknacks to look at on the walls or behind the bar, or even etched into the bar top. And that approach shows through brilliantly in this book. Here are some other things I find interesting or useful about I'm Just Here for the Drinks in no particular order. The classic cocktail badge next to classic cocktail recipes. This helps you get a sense of when and why these drinks came about and what their role is in the cocktail canon. It also helps you distinguish them from the custom jobs by Sother and all his guest bartenders. The very definition-focused section in the introduction, where a lot of time is given to explaining exactly what's meant by terms like a dash or double-strained. This makes the book approachable even to folks who are new to cocktails. The ingredient spotlights that highlight some of the most interesting and useful bottles you can have behind your bar. The homemade recipe section in the back, where the author shares his Manhattan glazed rib tips and his martini pickles recipe, among others. And the little Sother Says boxes, where he provides meta-commentary, tips, and tricks to help squeeze just a little more joy out of every recipe. So far, I've mostly been talking about the structural stuff I like about this book, but there's one other attribute that I think really sets it apart as being special, and that quality is the sense of humor and lightness with which it's written. Sother's a really down-to-earth and gregarious guy when you hear him interviewing guests on the Speakeasy, which is part of my personal weekly podcast diet. And a lot of that comes through in the way this book is written. He's got no qualms telling you why he doesn't think vodka should be in most cocktails. He's real about hangovers and how to deal with them. And he's not shy about saying he fucking loves gin. The entire book is peppered with little one-liners like, "Come visit me at work. Tell me I sent you." And he even makes a cocktail called the Sharpie Mustache, served in a flask with a mustache on it. I mean, come on. This guy knows how to have a good time, and that demeanor makes it an easy but still very nutritious read. I'll wrap up this book review by saying a couple things. One is that I highly recommend this book. As an avid cocktail reader, I'm starting to get a little hesitant about adding to my collection, mostly because I'm afraid of having too much redundant content on my shelves. But Sother manages to communicate the basics in a fresh way here, while also adding lots of new recipes and tips to the conversation. So from my bookshelf to yours, I guarantee it's worth a spot next to your tried and true favorites. The other point I really want to make, and I'll try to do it without fanboying too much here, is that Sother is a really dynamic and important person in the bar and cocktail world. He spends time advocating for mental health for service industry professionals. He has some really important thoughts on the nature of hospitality, which I'll link to in the show notes. And we actually launched the Modern Bar Cart podcast after attending a panel at Tales of the Cocktail in 2017, where he and others talked about podcasting for bartenders. So this podcast might not even exist without a little bit of, encouragement from Sother Teague and some of his contemporaries. I really encourage you to follow him on Instagram and Facebook at Creative Drunk so that you can stay informed about his latest and greatest projects, and just overall couldn't be more pleased to recommend this book and just the projects and media of Sother Teague in general. I think he's a great guy, and hoping to meet him again at some point in the near future so he can sign my damn book. That about does it for this book review episode of the Modern Bar Cart podcast. I'm Modern Bar Cart CEO Eric Kozlik. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, there's two big things you can do for us here at Modern Bar Cart. One would be to tell your friends and family if you think they'd enjoy listening to us talk about cocktails. And if they don't download podcasts, they can always stream our episodes on their desktop directly from the show notes page at modernbarcart.com. The other thing you can do to help would be to head on over to iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts and leave us a review. 5 stars are great, but we're more interested in your feedback. And the beauty is, the more reviews we have, the easier it will be for other folks out there to learn about our show. We're trying to start a cocktail revolution here, and by spreading the word, you're helping us fight the good fight. You can always reach us by emailing podcast@modernbarcart.com if you're looking for cocktail or bartending advice, or if you're a pro who would like to pull up a mic and be interviewed for all to hear. Also, definitely follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Modern Bar Cart for cocktail porn, recipes, and entertaining tips. And keep an eye out for new product releases and special offers, which are happening all the time. We love our listeners, and we really enjoy giving you exclusive discounts and sneak peeks at our latest and greatest cocktail projects. This episode may be over, but for you, the mixological fun and adventures are just beginning, so remember, folks, drink responsibly and experiment boldly. This episode was made possible with editing and production assistance by Samantha Reed, a great book by Sother Teague, and a little bit of book review magic by yours truly. This has been a Modern Bar Cart production, copyright 2019.